Hey, Joe here. How's it going? Today I am here to talk to you about Bernie. Bernie is an ER301 global chain that was created by Kell. And it's an implementation of a Bernoulli gate, similar to what you find in like a mutable instruments branches module. So this is essentially, a unit you can feed a trigger into it, and it essentially introduces some probability into it. So depending on how you have it set up, it'll fire one of two gates, so you can kind of switch between two different things that you're triggering and introduce some randomness into your patch. So I'm going to cover kind of how to install it, which is just a one-time thing, as well as how to set it up and tweak it a little bit if you want to. So we'll start with installation. So when you first get this, you're going to want to come up into your admin area, and you'll go into the global chains. So global chains here, and we'll do load chains. And I've stored mine, in my ER301 folder under presets globals. And I'm going to pick this Bernie 1 here, which is the most recent version as of this recording. So I'm going to come in here, and you'll notice that this loads up, kind of three different global chains here. So this is kind of a one-time configuration exercise because right now the ER301, if you have a recorded sample in a sample player, it doesn't necessarily transmit that along with it. So we're going to have to set up the samples, which is really easy. So the first thing I'm going to do is come in here into the A, and you'll notice there's a native player in here. And I'm just going to come up here and do assign sample. And I'm going to do load samples. And the sample that I'm going to use, what you need in here is, like a square wave sample. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pick from this folder here called AKWF, Adventure Kid Waveform. So if you don't have these, you can download these. I'll link to them. It's pretty darn useful set of single cycle waveforms. You'll definitely enjoy having them on your ER301. They don't take up much space. So I'm going to come down here to the Adventure Kid waveform, BWSQU square waves, and navigate into that folder, and I'm just going to pick the first square wave here, 0001. So we'll load that up and press enter to select it. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to slice this sample. So for me, I may already have this sliced. I do because I've installed this before. But if you were starting from scratch, it would look like this with no slices. And really all you want to do is just insert a slice right here at the beginning. So you should have 0.000. So just one slice will do the trick. Next we're going to pop up and we're just going to do the exact same thing for B here. So we'll load assign sample. I've already got the Adventure Kid waveform square 001 here, so I'll just select that. And I think this will already be sliced for me as well, and then probably for you too. I think that gets stored along with the sample, but let's just confirm it here. So I'll come in here and go to slices, and looks like I've got one at 0. So all good to go on there. And that that's really all there is to setting this up. Just installing these waveforms. Let's see here. So by default, this is configured to receive the trigger on G1, gate 1 up here on this channel. So I've got a physical input connected to that. I'm going to fire it here, that input, just to kind of stop these waveforms from going, and that'll stop the sample from just looping over and over. Alright, so there we go. At this point you could probably come in here and just save this global chain. You've already got it set up, that way you won't have to do this next time. So I'll just come in here and do a new file, and we'll call this Bernie Plus. How about that? That'll be my my personal copy. Okay, so that's all good to go. So now we're going to get into using it. So if I come back up here to my user channel, just to save some time here, I've got kind of a drum rack set up here. So I've got a snare, a kick. These are receiving their triggers from my Beat Step Pro. I believe they're coming into channels A2 and B2. And over here I've got a closed hat and an open hat. So what I want to do is kind of, assign these the same trigger, the output of the Bernoulli gate, or Bernie, and kind of have it, switch back and forth between these to spice it up, and I can get, some endless kind of variations on these based on the randomness of that Bernoulli gate. Let's see, so I'll set up the closed hat first. I've already got my sound assigned and everything in here, so all I really need to do is set up the trigger. So I'm going to come into the trigger, and in this case, instead of a physical trigger, I'm going to come down here to my globals, and I've got my A and my B. So A and B are the outputs for Bernie, and I really just want to assign one of these to one of my samples, and B to another one. So for the closed hat, let's pick A. And for the open hat, we'll come up here, and in the simplest installation, I would just pick B for this. I'm actually going to set this up so that it closes my open hat when I hit the closed hat. I did a video on this the other day, so I'm going to, you can review that if you want to check out how to do this, but I'm just going to set it up really quickly. So normally, if you just wanted to alternate between two sounds, you could just come in here and pick the B trigger for this. In my case, I'm setting it up with a copy of A just to kind of slam that open hat shut. And this piece is also to kind of help me slam the open hat shut. All right, I think that's going to do the trick for me. So essentially have the closed hat on A and the open hat on B. So I've got a little rhythm set up here. So I've just got three things going. I've got the kick on the 1 and 3, a snare on the 2 and 4, and then I've got a hi-hat triggering on eighth notes. But what we'll hear is it should kind of shift back and forth between this closed and open hat based on the output of this Bernoulli gate, Bernie, even though I'm only sending it one trigger for both of them. So let's see if we got this working. Sounded good. So let's come back up here to the admin area. We can kind of take a look at this thing, in motion. So we got the A and the B. I'm just going to play the rhythm again, and you can kind of watch. Hopefully, you'll be able to see the triggers firing, at alternating places here. All right, cool. So one more thing I wanted to point out here about usage. If you come in here into this flip, and assuming you have the latest version here, if you take a look at this chain, we've got white noise, we've got a low pass ladder, and then we've got this offset here, and this offset is kind of cool. I've got this, you can see, wired up to A1 here, and there's another offset that was already there. Really all you have to do is come in and assign where you want this input to be, and this is this is intended to be a 0 to 5 volt offset. So I've got that hooked up to, I believe it is channel 2 on my maths, which is just kind of a 5 volt offset. So as I scroll that up and down, you can kind of see what happens to it. So what this is kind of a probability control. So, do you want a 50-50 even split between channel A and channel B, or trigger A and trigger B, or do you want to kind of skew it one way or the other? So let's take a look at what actually happens with this when I move it around. I'm going to do a focus pressed on here. And you can see I've got this noise signal, it's right, right in between those two middle lines. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to shift this up and down using that offset from the maths, and you can kind of hear what happens as I move it, more toward the top. We're going to get more of channel trigger A, and as I move it toward the bottom, we're going to get, more of trigger B, until it's, just exclusively one or the other. So let's take a look and a listen. So, pretty cool, huh? Let's see, the last thing I want to show you is just, this is what kind of held up this video. Bernie is expecting to get a trigger signal, as opposed to a gate signal. So I kind of want to show you what happens here when I send it a gate signal instead of a trigger signal, and how that kind of messes it up. So this is just, something to be aware of. All right, so we're going to take a look at the trigger signal that I'm sending here on the oscilloscope. So first, this is kind of normal operation here, right, where I'm sending something that looks, very much like a trigger. It's got a very small duty cycle, or the kind of the positive portion is going to be just a very small sliver, and most of the time it's at 0. So take a look at what that looks like. I don't know if you can see down here, I've got it measuring the pulse width. It's very small, it's like 3 milliseconds. So let's adjust that a little bit. I'm going to actually increase the gate length on all of these different hi-hat hits I'm sending. I'm going to bring those right up, pretty much to the max, and we can watch what happens to the gate signal here, and you're also going to hear Bernie kind of freak out here, so don't be alarmed. Just kind of showing this as a heads up. So that's kind of what happens there. I guess you might be able to use that, to your advantage if you wanted a kind of a crazier effect. But, for normal operation, you definitely want a trigger-style pulse coming into it. Very short duty cycle, as opposed to what we just saw there, which, the pulse width on that was, looks like about 120 milliseconds. So I think that's it. That's kind of a tour of Bernie. I'm pretty excited about it. I think there's a lot of possibilities for this kind of a Bernoulli gate here, living on the 301. It's got really small CPU usage, so I'm definitely planning to use it in my patches. Hope you enjoyed, and if you have any questions, I would suggest directing them to Kel. All right, thanks. Take care.